A single mother stands outside a prestigious university auditorium, her weathered hands clutching a homemade graduation card. Security guards block her path. No ticket, no entry, they say firmly. Inside, hundreds of proud families watch as their children prepare to graduate. The grand auditorium of Princeton University gleamed with polished wood and brass fixtures. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, illuminating rows of graduates in their caps and gowns. Professional photographers captured every smile, every handshake, every proud parent's tear. Outside, beneath gathering storm clouds, she waited. A woman in her late 50s, dressed in the cleanest clothes she owned, a simple blue blouse and worn black pants. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, grey strands escaping at the temples. Her hands, rough from decades of manual labor, trembled slightly as she clutched a small handmade card and a single yellow rose. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you need a ticket," the security guard repeated, his voice firm but not unkind. "The ceremony is at capacity and fire regulations are strict." "Please," she whispered, her voice heavy with a Spanish accent. "My son, he graduates today, top of his class." The guard's expression softened momentarily, but he shook his head. "I understand, but I can't make exceptions. Perhaps you can watch the live stream in the overflow room at the student center." Behind him, well-dressed couples strode confidently past, flashing their embossed invitations. A woman in designer clothes glanced at her with a mixture of pity and discomfort before quickening her pace inside. She stepped back, pride preventing her from begging further. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. She tucked the homemade card inside her purse to protect it from the downpour. 23 years of sacrifice, of working 3 jobs, of nights spent helping with homework despite her limited English, all to stand outside in the rain. Through the closing doors, she caught a glimpse of students filing onto the stage. Which one was her Marcus? She'd missed so many moments already. Soccer games she couldn't attend because of work, parent-teacher conferences she had to skip for night shifts. But not this. She wouldn't miss this moment. As the doors closed, she made her decision. She would find another way in. For her son. For the boy who had risen before dawn to study, who had earned a full scholarship through sheer determination, who had never once complained about their small apartment or second-hand clothes. For Marcus, she would find a way. Inside the auditorium, Elizabeth Harrington adjusted her Chanel jacket and smiled at the university president's welcome speech. As chair of the Alumni Association, she'd secured front-row seats for the ceremony. Her son Bradley sat beside her, his attention fixed on his phone rather than the proceedings. "Brad, put that away," she whispered sharply. "It looks disrespectful." Bradley sighed dramatically, but slipped the phone into his pocket. "How much longer is this going to take?" "The after-party at the Carmichael estate starts in 2 hours. Your father pulled strings to get you into this university," Elizabeth hissed. "The least you can do is pretend to be grateful during graduation." Meanwhile, at the back entrance of the auditorium, Rosa Vasquez approached a service entrance. Kitchen staff rushed past with trays of hors d'oeuvres for the reception. Rosa recognized several of them. She'd worked catering jobs at the university herself over the years. "Rosa, is that you?" Maria, a longtime colleague, spotted her from the kitchen doorway. "What are you doing here? Aren't you working the hotel tonight?" "My son Marcus graduates today," Rosa explained quickly, "but I couldn't get a ticket. They said they're at capacity." Maria's eyes widened. "Marcus is graduating? That brilliant boy who used to do homework in our break room? Dios mio, I remember when he was just learning English." "Yes, and now he's graduating with honors. I just want to see him walk across the stage. Please, Maria." Maria hesitated, glancing over her shoulder at the busy kitchen. "The security is tight, Rosa. They check staff IDs. I'll wash dishes all night at your next catering job," Rosa pleaded. "I just need 5 minutes to see my son." Maria studied her friend's face, the eyes that had shed tears over double shifts, the hands that had washed dishes alongside her own for years. Finally, she nodded. "Come with me. You can wear my spare uniform." Minutes later, Rosa stood in a catering uniform, carrying a tray of water glasses toward the auditorium. Her heart pounded as she approached the door where another guard checked staff credentials. "New hire?" he asked suspiciously. "Training day," Maria intervened smoothly. "She's with me." The guard nodded, waving them through. Rosa entered the vast auditorium, her eyes immediately searching the stage for her son. From her front row seat, Elizabeth noticed the older Latina woman in catering clothes standing at the back, clutching her tray while staring intently at the graduates. Something about her intensity caught Elizabeth's attention. "Excuse me," Elizabeth beckoned to Rosa. "We need water here." Rosa approached hesitantly, her eyes still darting to the stage where the university president was introducing the valedictorian. "And now," the president announced, "I am pleased to introduce this year's valedictorian, with the highest GPA in Princeton's history for the economics department, Marcus Vasquez." Rosa froze, her tray trembling in her hands. Elizabeth noticed and frowned. "Are you all right?" she asked, more annoyed than concerned. "That's my son," Rosa whispered, tears filling her eyes. "My Marcus." Elizabeth's expression changed to disbelief as she looked from the distinguished young man approaching the podium to the woman in the catering uniform. "You're his mother?" "Yes," Rosa said simply, pride momentarily overcoming her fear of being discovered. "That's my boy." Security approached from behind. "Ma'am, can I see your ID badge?" Rosa's moment of joy shattered. She had been discovered. "She doesn't have proper credentials," the security guard explained to his supervisor who had been summoned. "She's not university catering staff." Rosa stood with her head bowed, the catering tray now held limply at her side. Marcus was at the podium, beginning his speech, unaware of the drama unfolding in the audience. "My son," Rosa began, but the security supervisor cut her off. "I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave. This is a restricted event." Elizabeth watched the scene unfold, feeling an unexpected twist of emotion. She remembered her own graduation decades ago, how her parents had taken hundreds of photos, thrown an extravagant party, given her a new car. This woman couldn't even get a seat to watch her son's triumph. "Wait," Elizabeth began, but Bradley tugged at her sleeve. "Mum, you're missing the speech. Who cares about the help?" His dismissive words struck her like a slap. Is this what she had raised? A young man who could speak so callously about another human being? The security guards began to escort Rosa toward the exit. She didn't resist, but kept her eyes fixed on her son at the podium, trying to memorize every detail of this moment. How tall he stood, how confident his voice sounded echoing through the auditorium. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished faculty," Marcus began, his voice strong and clear. "Today marks not just the end of our academic journey, but the beginning of our opportunity to make real change in the world." Rosa stumbled slightly as they reached the exit doors, drawing attention from nearby graduates and parents. A murmur of curiosity rippled through that section of the audience. "I stand before you as the first in my family to attend college," Marcus continued, unaware of the commotion. "And while I've worked hard to earn my place here, I am not self-made. No one truly is." As the doors opened and rain poured in, Rosa cast one last desperate look at her son. In that moment, by some miracle, Marcus looked up from his notes, and his eyes met hers across the auditorium. His expression changed instantly. Shock, confusion, then understanding dawning across his features. His voice faltered. The audience shifted uncomfortably as silence filled the grand hall. Elizabeth watched the young man's face, saw his gaze fixed on the woman being escorted out. Something about his expression, pride mixed with pain, made her chest tighten. "That's his mother, isn't it?" she whispered, almost to herself. Marcus gripped the podium, his carefully prepared speech forgotten. "I'm sorry," he said into the microphone, his voice cracking slightly. "But I need to pause for a moment." The university president leaned forward with concern, but Marcus continued. "The woman being escorted out right now, the one in the catering uniform, that's my mother." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. The security guards stopped in their tracks, uncertain how to proceed. "She's worked 3 jobs for most of my life to give me opportunities she never had," Marcus said, his voice gaining strength. "She cleaned offices at night so I could have quiet to study during the day. She served food at parties like the one that will follow this ceremony so I could have books and a computer." Rosa stood frozen by the exit, tears streaming down her face, mortification and pride warring within her. "And apparently," Marcus continued, a note of anger entering his voice, "she couldn't get a ticket to watch me graduate." The university president shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Parents exchanged awkward glances. Elizabeth felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation build in her chest. Was it shame? "I'm sorry, Marcus," the university president said quietly, approaching the microphone. There must have been some mistake with the ticketing. But Marcus wasn't listening. He had stepped away from the podium and was walking across the stage toward the steps that led to the auditorium floor. "Marcus," the president called after him, "your speech." "We'll wait," Marcus finished firmly. "I'm not saying another word until my mother has the seat she deserves." He walked down the center aisle toward Rosa, every eye in the auditorium following him. The perfect silence was broken only by the sound of his dress shoes against the marble floor. Elizabeth watched as Marcus approached his mother. There was no embarrassment in his stride, no shame in his expression, only determination. He reached Rosa, who was trying to shrink into herself, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes upon her. "Mama," he said, loud enough for nearby Rose to hear. "You shouldn't be serving water today. You should be sitting in the front row." "Marcus, no," Rosa whispered in Spanish. "I didn't mean to interrupt. Go back, finish your speech. This is your moment." "No," he replied firmly, also in Spanish. "This is our moment. Everything I am, I owe to you." He turned to the audience, switching back to English. "My mother has never sat in the front row of anything in her life. She's always been in the back or in the kitchen or outside looking in. Not today." Elizabeth found herself rising to her feet before she fully realized what she was doing. "She can have my seat," she called out, surprising herself as much as everyone else. Marcus looked at her, momentarily stunned. "Thank you, but—" "No," Elizabeth interrupted, a strange new clarity washing over her. Actually, she should have had it from the beginning. She turned to Bradley, who was staring at her in confusion. "Move over, Brad. We're making room." Bradley started to protest, but something in his mother's expression silenced him. He shifted reluctantly, creating space in the prestigious front row. Marcus took his mother's hand and led her down the aisle. Rosa walked hesitantly, acutely aware of her catering uniform among the designer clothes and tailored suits. "I can't, Marcus," she whispered. "Look at me." "I am looking," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "I see the woman who worked 20 hours a day sometimes, who learned English from children's books so she could help me with homework, who never once complained about her own dreams being put aside." As they reached the front row, Elizabeth extended her hand. "I'm Elizabeth Harrington. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Vasquez." Rosa looked at the outstretched hand, manicured, adorned with expensive jewelry, so different from her own work-worn fingers. For a moment she hesitated, then accepted the gesture with quiet dignity. "Rosa," she corrected gently. "Just Rosa." Elizabeth nodded, a genuine smile breaking through her usually practiced expression. "Rosa, then. Your son is remarkable." "Yes," Rosa agreed, her eyes shining with tears and pride. "He is." As Marcus returned to the stage, the audience remained standing. Some were moved by the display of filial devotion. Others were uncomfortably confronting their own preconceptions. A few were simply following social cues, uncertain what had just happened. Back at the podium, Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, at his mother now seated in the front row, still in her borrowed catering uniform, but sitting tall, her dignity intact. "I prepared a speech about economic theory and social mobility," he said, "about statistical anomalies and systemic barriers, but I think I've already demonstrated my point more effectively than any words could." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Look around you. How many of the people who made this day possible for each of us are actually in this room? The teachers who stayed late to help us learn, the family members who couldn't get time off work to travel here, the staff who prepared this very auditorium but will never be invited to sit in it." From her seat, Elizabeth glanced at Bradley, who was staring at Marcus with grudging interest. She noticed her son's eyes occasionally drifting to Rosa, studying her. "My economics professor taught us that the greatest predictor of success isn't intelligence or work ethic," Marcus continued. "It's the zip code you're born in, the opportunities you have access to, the doors that open or remain closed based on factors you cannot control." He looked directly at Rosa. "My mother cleaned offices in that building right there." He pointed out the window to a campus structure. "She emptied trash cans while I studied in the library. She deserves this degree as much as I do, maybe more." Rosa shook her head slightly, but her eyes shone with fierce pride. "So today, I'm not just accepting this honor for myself, Marcus said. I'm accepting it for her, for the woman who taught me that dignity isn't about what you wear or what title you hold. It's about how you treat others, about remembering where you came from and making sure to hold the door open for those coming after you. As he spoke, Elizabeth found herself examining her own life choices, her values, what she had taught her son through words, and, more importantly, through actions. She glanced at Bradley, who was now watching Rosa with a complicated expression. "Mom," Bradley whispered, surprising her, "did you know Dad's company doesn't offer paid leave for the cleaning staff? Is that normal?" The question caught Elizabeth off guard. In 22 years, Bradley had never once asked about the welfare of service workers. She looked from her son to Rosa and back again. "I don't know," she admitted, "but perhaps it's something we should find out." On stage, Marcus was concluding his impromptu speech. "So as we leave here today with our degrees and our plans and our privileges, I ask you to remember one thing. We all share this world. We all deserve dignity. And sometimes the most important people in our stories are the ones we've been taught not to see." The ceremony concluded with thunderous applause, many in the audience rising to their feet. As graduates filed out to meet their families, Rosa stood awkwardly in her catering uniform, uncertain where to go. "You must be very proud," Elizabeth said, filling the silence. "Yes," Rosa replied simply. "Every day, not just today." Elizabeth nodded, understanding the gentle correction. "Of course. I meant—" "Mom," Bradley interrupted, pointing toward the exit. "Dad's here, he's looking for us." A distinguished man in an expensive suit was scanning the crowd. Elizabeth waved, catching his attention. "That's my husband, Richard," she explained to Rosa. "He's on the university's board of trustees." Rosa nodded politely, but her attention was elsewhere, searching for Marcus among the sea of identical caps and gowns. Richard approached, his expression curious as he took in the scene. His wife engaged in conversation with a woman in catering clothes. "Elizabeth? Bradley?" he began, then noticed Rosa. "Is everything all right?" Before Elizabeth could respond, Marcus appeared, diploma in hand. He embraced his mother fiercely, lifting her slightly off the ground. "We did it, Mama," he whispered. "We did it." "You did it," she corrected, touching his face gently. "All you." "No," Marcus insisted. "We did it together." Richard watched the exchange with interest. "Elizabeth, who is this?" "This is Rosa Vasquez," Elizabeth said. "She's Marcus's mother. Marcus was our valedictorian today." Recognition dawned on Richard's face. "Ah, yes, Vasquez. Exceptional academic record. I reviewed his scholarship application personally." He extended his hand to Marcus. "Congratulations, young man. Your paper on economic inequality in urban centers was quite impressive." "Thank you, sir," Marcus replied, shaking the offered hand. "I drew inspiration from personal experience." Richard nodded, then turned to Rosa with practiced politeness. "Mrs. Vasquez, you must be very proud." "I am," Rosa said, her accent more pronounced with emotion. "But please call me Rosa." "Rosa," Richard repeated, his tone softening slightly. "You've raised a remarkable son." An uncomfortable silence fell over the group. Two families, separated by vast differences in privilege and experience, standing together in a moment of uncertain connection. Elizabeth broke the tension. "We're hosting a small reception at our home for Bradley and some friends. Marcus, Rosa, would you join us?" Rosa immediately began to decline, but Marcus placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "We'd be honored," he said, ignoring his mother's surprised look. "Thank you." As the crowd dispersed, heading to various celebrations, Rosa pulled Marcus aside. "Mijo, I don't belong in their world," she whispered urgently, "and I'm still in this uniform." Marcus looked at his mother, seeing beyond the borrowed clothes to the woman who had shaped his character. "Mama, you belong anywhere I belong," he said firmly. "And if they can't see your worth, that's their loss, not yours." Later, at the Harringtons' elegant home, Rosa stood in the garden, having changed into a simple dress Marcus had retrieved from their apartment. She watched as her son moved confidently among the university elite, discussing economic theory and post-graduation plans. Elizabeth approached, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. She offered one to Rosa. "Your son is quite the center of attention," she observed. Rosa accepted the glass with a small smile. He always was, even as a child. So curious, so full of questions. Bradley was the opposite, Elizabeth confessed. We had to practically bribe him to study. She paused, considering her next words carefully. I've been thinking about what Marcus said today, about dignity and opportunity. Rosa waited, sensing there was more. Richard's company has a foundation, Elizabeth continued. We fund scholarships, but mostly for students from backgrounds like ours, children of alumni, that sort of thing. She took a sip of champagne, gathering her thoughts. I'd like to establish a new scholarship program for students like Marcus, brilliant minds who just need the door held open. Would you consider helping me design it? As a consultant. Rosa's eyes widened with surprise. Me? But I don't know anything about scholarships. But you know everything about raising a child with limited resources, Elizabeth countered. About what families like yours actually need, not what people like me think they need. For the first time that day, Rosa felt seen not for who her son was, but for who she was. I would be honored, she said quietly. Thank you. 3 months later, Rosa sat at a desk in the Harrington Foundation's newly established Education Access Initiative. What had begun as a consulting position had evolved into a full-time role as Community Outreach Director. Today, she was reviewing applications for the program's first scholarship cycle. The door opened, and Marcus entered, now dressed in the sharp suit of a junior analyst at a prestigious firm. Surprise inspection, he teased, kissing his mother's cheek. How's it going? Very well, Rosa replied, gesturing to the stack of applications. So many brilliant young people, mijo, just like you, but without the opportunities. Not anymore, Marcus said proudly. Not with you fighting for them. Elizabeth entered, carrying coffee for the three of them. The months of working together had softened the formality between the women, creating a genuine, if unlikely, friendship. We've had double the applications we expected, Elizabeth announced. The university is impressed. She set down the cups. And Richard's company has decided to institute paid family leave for all employees, including cleaning and maintenance staff. Rosa smiled. Bradley's influence? Partly, Elizabeth admitted. He's become quite the advocate since graduation. I think your son made quite an impression on mine. Marcus checked his watch. I should go. Meeting in 30 minutes. He hugged his mother again. Dinner Sunday? Of course, Rosa replied. Bring Bradley if he's free. I'm making pozole. After Marcus left, the women sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I've been thinking, Rosa said finally, about that day at graduation. How different everything could have been if Marcus hadn't seen me being escorted out. Elizabeth nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes we need to be forced to see what's right in front of us. The world is full of invisible people, Rosa said softly. The ones who clean your offices, who serve your food, who care for your children while you work. We all have dignity. We all have dreams. She picked up a photograph on her desk, herself and Marcus on graduation day, his arm around her shoulders, both beaming with pride. The true measure of success isn't what you achieve, she continued. It's who you lift up along the way. Elizabeth smiled, genuinely moved. I think that should be the motto for our scholarship program. Maybe, Rosa agreed. But more importantly, it should be how we live our lives. Outside the window, autumn leaves fell gently from the trees, a reminder that change was constant, inevitable, and sometimes beautiful. The true measure of success isn't what you achieve, but who you lift up along the way. And you? Have you ever been judged by your appearance or background? Have you ever had a moment that changed how you see others? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories of transformation and redemption.